Okay, let's get our Bible study started. Okay. Okay. All right. So the topic that we're going to answer or try to answer, this is going to be a 6-part Bible study, and today we're going to do part 1. Why did God allow these things to happen? So let me unpack this question first. This is what one person said. It is not science that has led me to doubt the purpose of God. It's the state of this world. It is this pitiless, unending struggle for existence among the nations. It is the collapse of our idealisms. There is a radical twist in the very constitute of this nation, or this universe, which will always defeat man's hope, make havoc of his dreams, and bring this pathetic optimism crashing in disaster. Purpose? Look at this world. That settles it for me. Okay? So this person is saying, okay, I know a lot of people don't believe in God because of the advance of science and evolution, and people actually think that evolution is contradicting God, and because of that, he's not saying that, right? He's basically saying, no, there cannot be God. Look at the stat of this, look at the things that are going on in this world. Okay, and people might be thinking that through coronavirus and everything that's going on right now, or even if you would just watch the news, right? You hear of things like where a kid is having a Bible study, but there's like gang shooting going on and that kid dies, right? Because he gets shot. And it's like there's zero purpose to that. There's no reason why those things need to happen. So again, this person is saying, when I look at those things, there cannot be God. There cannot be meaning or purpose in this life. So this is not a new question. This is a very, very ancient question. EPICURUS, he's a Greek philosopher, and he put it like this. He said, there's a problem because maybe God wants to get rid of evil. Okay, maybe he wants to get rid of suffering, but he cannot. He doesn't have the power to. Okay, what's the problem with that? Then God is not omnipotent. He's not all-powerful. Okay? So he said, maybe God can get rid of evil, but he doesn't want to get rid of evil and suffering. Then that makes God a wicked God. Maybe he's just not a good God. Okay, so these are both things that, at least for Christians, you don't want to say these things. Because these are both things that the Bible says who God is, right? But he says if God both can, he has the power to, and wants to, he's a good, loving God, why is there still evil in this world? So basically the essential question is, if God is a loving God and a powerful God, then why wouldn't he get rid of evil and suffering? Okay? So that's the question. Let me frame it to you another way. There was an interview with a guy named Stephen Fry. Maybe some of you guys have watched him. He's known for acting. Maybe some of you guys watch. I don't know if you guys watch Sherlock Holmes. He was in some of those movies. Anyways, he's a British actor, and he was having an interview, and he's a known atheist. He's like a very like militant atheist. So like there's different types of atheists. Like there's some atheists, they go, I don't believe in God. But if religious people, they want to believe in God, then whatever, let them do whatever they want, right? But militant atheists are like, no, we need to get rid of all religion. Religion itself is like detrimental to our society, okay? So he's one of them. So it was really interesting when the guy who's interviewing, Gay Burns, he says, suppose it's all true, and you walk up to the pearly gates and you are confronted by God. What would Stephen Fry say to him, her, or it? Okay, so he's saying, maybe you're wrong. You die, you get to heaven. Okay, you see God. Or maybe hell, but you see God at the end of your life. Okay, what are you going to say? Stephen Fry says, it's known as the Odyssey. I'll say, bone cancer in children? What's that about? How dare you? How dare you create a world where there is such misery that is not our fault? It's not right. It is utterly, utterly evil. Why should I respect a capricious, mean-minded, stupid God who creates a world that is so full of injustice and pain? That's what I'll say. Okay? So he's basically saying, God, you're doing a horrible job. Okay? You made a mess of this world. What's up with this? Okay? So Gabe Burns, he makes a joke and he says, and you think you're going to get into heaven? Okay, if you say that to God, God's not going to get you into heaven. Okay, he makes a joke. Stephen Fry say, oh, but I wouldn't want to. Okay, I wouldn't want to get in on his term. They're wrong. Now, if I died and it was Pluto, Hades, if it were the 12 Greek gods, then I would have more truck with it. Because the Greeks didn't pretend not to be human in their appetites and in their capriciousness and in their unreasonableness. They didn't present themselves as being all-seeing, all-wise, all-kind, all-magnificent. Because the God who created this universe, if it was created by God, is quite clearly a maniac, utter maniac, totally selfish. Okay, so he's essentially saying, okay, he's saying, I don't care to go to that kind of heaven anyways. I don't want to be with that kind of God. Okay, but he says this. He actually attacks the Christian conception of God, which is he's basically saying, okay, if it was a bunch of like Greek gods up there, then he'll be like, oh, it makes sense why this world is the way it is. Because the Greek gods, they never said we're powerful. We're all powerful. They never said we're all loving. They actually do a lot of the things that humans actually do now, right? So he would say, oh, if he saw like Zeus or Hades like fighting each other, you know, I mean, oh, okay, that's why this world is also a mess. But he's saying, basically, in Christians, you guys say God is a loving God. God is an all-powerful God. Then what's up with this world? Continues on. We have to spend our life on our knees thanking Him? What kind of God would do that? Yes, the world is very splendid, but it also has in it insects whose whole life cycle is to burrow into the eyes of children and make them blind. They eat outwards from the eye. Why did you do that? Why? Why did you do that to us? You could have easily made a creation where that did not exist. It is simply not acceptable. Okay? So again, he's saying, you're a loving God. You say you're a loving God, you're a powerful God, but this world is a mess. And you're telling us we have to worship you? We have to sing songs to you? Makes zero sense whatsoever. So, you know, atheism is not just about not believing there is a God, but on the assumption there is one. What kind of God is he? Is it? It is perfectly apparent that he is monstrous, utterly monstrous, and deserves no respect whatsoever. The moment that you banish him from your life, your life becomes simpler, purer, cleaner, more worth living, in my opinion. Okay? So he's saying, even if God did exist, I wouldn't care for him. Okay, but obviously God doesn't exist in his opinion, and he says, just get rid of him. Your life is going to be simpler, purer, cleaner, much better for you anyways. Okay? Let's go into discussion question. This one, the ladies and the guys together. How would you respond to Stephen Fry? And number two is, how important is this question, and also the answer of this question for you? How, personally for you, how important is it? Go for it. Sorry, I'll put the slide back up. Okay, let's do one more minute. So if you haven't, please go to question number 2. One more minute, and then we'll continue our lesson. Okay, I hope you guys had a good discussion. Let's come back. So once again, the question that we're trying to go over is why does God, okay, more specifically, if God is a good and a loving God, right, and an all-powerful God at that, why is it that he allows evil things, bad things, suffering to happen? By the way, this, like I told you guys before, this is a 6-week series, or it might be even a 7-week series. So we're gonna talk about this question very, very slowly, and also because it's easy for Christians, I think, to give a very pat answer, but this is not a pat question, right? This is a very, very serious question, especially for a time like this. It's very sensitive for people who are going through tremendous amount of emotional or mental distress, or even physical suffering, right? I mean, the world has always been like this, but specifically it's more sensitive, right? So again, we're going slowly, not because Christianity doesn't have an answer, but because this is a very demanding question. It demands a very thorough answer as well. So we have to be very careful in how we talk about this. All right. So first thing today specifically, what we're gonna talk about is how do different religions actually approach this question. Okay? And we're gonna talk about who actually asked this question in the first place. Okay, this is gonna be very, very interesting. So let's go to it. All right. So let's go over different world religions, and you guys can help me out. Some of you guys have taken world religion in your college or even from me before. And so let's talk about it. All right. According to Hindus or Hinduism, why do they say there is suffering in this world? Why is there coronavirus? Okay. Why is there bugs eating babies' eyes out? Why are these things happening? Karma. Very good. Okay, what is this concept of karma? What's the idea behind it? Okay, so you yourself did something bad in the past, therefore you're getting the result of that. Okay, so if I get coronavirus, why is it that I got coronavirus? You must have done something wrong in the past. So if you don't get coronavirus, that is because maybe you did something good in the past. Okay, so they say karma. All right, so I'll give you some pictures to show you that. Okay, so you see this man, he's kicking, and then you see, uh-oh, right? This divine karma spirit is going to get you. How about this one? Do you guys see how this is karma? Okay, this guy, he's doing the ears, and then the horse is doing literally ears behind him. Okay, so now, let's go to second religion, okay, Buddhism. Okay, what would Buddhists say? Why is there suffering in your life? Why is there anxiety and fear in your life? By the way, Buddhism, their whole religion is revolved around this question of pain, suffering. And their whole religion is to alleviate of you of that suffering and pain. So what would they say? What is the reason why you suffer? Somebody else, huh? Right? Nirvana, that's good, but you're still not telling me why we're not reaching nirvana. Okay, so good, good, okay? So it's because of attachments. Okay? You have attachments. That's why you suffer. You love things. Okay, for example, if one of your friend died because of coronavirus, you're sad. You suffer. You become anxious. You become stressed. Why? Because you love that person. Let it go. Let go of that attachment. Or for example, some of us, we definitely have financial hits. Maybe we have stock market. We have investments we've made. It has all gone down. Why? You're attached to money. Let it go. Let it all go. The reason why you suffer is because of attachments. I'll give you some other examples. Okay? You see this baby? Very, 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 very unhappy. Why? Because she is attached. Okay? All the Korean dramas, right? Movies you watch, a lot of it is because of attachments. Let it go. Give you another example. How about this? Okay, right? Kids always think that bigger is better. He has ice cream right in front of him, but again, because he is of his attachment, his greed, his desire, he's not enjoying it. Okay? And then nowadays, this is adult version of envy, right? It's like, oh, you have so many friends, you have so many followers, you have so many likes, comments. Okay? So Buddhism says, why is there suffering? The reason why you suffer is because you have attachments. So for them, they say, let it go. Let go of all attachments. Okay, and then they teach you different methods of detaching. That's Buddhism in a nutshell. Okay, New Age. What would these New Age religions nowadays, what would they say about suffering? Pain. Why is there pain? Why is there suffering in this world? Would you like to, anybody would like to guess? It's very close, but that's the result. Why do you have to change the state of mind? Because the world is a certain way, you have to change. Okay? Anybody? Anybody? Okay, they say, do you know? Do you remember, Will?
No, I don't remember.
Hey, you took my class like 4 times.
I don't remember the New Age.
Okay. Okay, so New Age, they say everything is an illusion. Oh, Will, you're so good, man. You had it. So they believe that existence itself is just an illusion. Everything is an illusion. Okay, so this is what they would say. Yeah, kind of like Matrix, But Matrix doesn't work because Matrix, there is actually a real world. Okay, anyways, they say this: life is an illusion. I am held together in the nothingness by art. Oh, isn't that beautiful? No, that's stupid, okay? Just my opinion, okay? All right. Shankara, he was a metaphysician of a Hindu worldview. Shankara. And one of the things he said was, everything is an illusion, even your sense of self. Okay? This is what he said. All right?
Except that statement. That's not an illusion.
Except, no, that's an illusion too. Okay? So one day, let me tell you a story. Okay, one day, he was chased by an elephant, so he ran up a tree. Shankara. Hey, calm down, calm down. All right, okay. We're getting there. Somebody asked him why, if it was an illusion, did he run? Right, because he said everything is an illusion. So he said, why did you run away from an illusionary elephant? So he said, well, that was an illusionary elephant, and my run was an illusion, and I climbed an illusionary tree. So once again, everything is an illusion. Okay? So once again, what would New Age religions, what would they say about suffering itself? They say, what are you talking about? It doesn't exist. So meditation, okay, a lot of these new popular self-help books, a lot of it is, they don't say this, obviously, but they're based on this kind of thought. Okay? Just get rid of them. Think differently. Look at different perspective. You'll see that it'll actually disappear. You don't have problems. There is no coronavirus. It's just an illusion. If you look at it differently, you'll see that it's actually not there. Okay, positive thinking. Islam. Okay, what would they say about suffering? Why is there suffering in this world? What would Muslims say?
God's plan.
Okay, it could be God's plan. Okay. Okay, so these are several. It could be several options. Okay, it could be just God's will. Okay, Allah's will, or maybe you disobey God. Okay? Or maybe this is a test. Okay? So some Christians might say these things as well. Okay? Now, the thing about Islam, though, is that they believe in the idea of submission. Okay, so the word Islam actually means peace comes or freedom comes when you submit to Allah. Okay, so basically for Muslims, whenever there is suffering and all these things, you don't ask the question why. You don't get to ask that to Allah, because the whole idea of their religion is submission. So whatever Allah brings your way, you just say this is Allah's will, and you just take it. Okay. All right. How about atheist? What would atheist say? Why is there suffering? Why is there coronavirus in this world? Why bugs where they eat out of babies' eyeballs? Why these things? What would atheist or naturalist meaning they don't believe in the supernatural, what would they say? Cause and effect? So what's the cause? Sure. Okay. So this is just natural part of this life. There's nothing special about it. No meaning, no purpose to it. Another way, how about saying bad luck? Okay. Or maybe some of you guys just evolved badly. You evolved with bad genes, so too bad for you. Okay, your parents, okay, they had bad genes and it was carried down to you and you have cancer. Okay? Or you smoked, or you have lung problems, you got coronavirus, you die. Your fault. There's no special meaning or purpose to it. It's absolutely random. Okay. This is some of the things that atheists said. Richard Dawkins, he's a popular one. This is what he said. The total amount of suffering per year in the natural world is beyond all decent contemplation. In a universe of blind physical forces and genetic replication, some people are going to get hurt, and other people are going to get lucky. And you won't find any rhythm or reason in it, nor any justice. The universe that we observe has precisely the properties we should expect if there is, at bottom, no design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but pitiless indifference. So he's saying, why are you guys even asking this question in the first place? Okay, everything involved. Okay, there is no purpose in this world anyway. So of course, when it comes to suffering and pain, there's no purpose either. Pretty simple. He continues on. The question of why is an universal delusion. Okay, he's saying as atheists, we should not be even asking this question of why. This is a dumb question. Okay? Why cancer? Why earthquake? Why hurricane? Why? Useless questions. These are useless questions. We live in a world where everything is random. So why are you even asking questions? A better question I would ask him, just to intervene a little bit, is why do we even have the need to have this question answered if we are just the byproduct of randomness in the first place? Okay, anyways, we ask because we cannot admit that things might be neither good nor evil nor cruel nor kind, but simply callous, indifferent to all suffering, lacking purpose. Okay, so he's saying we can't fathom this world, okay, without purpose and meaning, and that's why we continue to ask stupid questions like this. But this is useless. This is totally useless question. This is a waste of time. Okay, why coronavirus? Why cancer? Why death? What are you doing? Another person, he's a poet. He says it a little more poetically. He says, for nature, heartless, witless nature will neither care or know, nor know. DNA neither knows or cares. DNA just is, and we dance to its music. Okay? So again, there's no purpose, there's no meaning behind it. This is the way it is. Okay. Now this is where it's going to get really, really fascinating. Okay, this is the important part. Okay, I want to ask you guys. We started off with what question? The question is, why doesn't all-powerful, all-knowing God allow pain and suffering? Yes or no? Yes. Are Hindus asking this question? Do they say, God, you said you're a loving God, you're a powerful God, why are you letting these things happen? Are they asking this question? No, they're not asking this question. Why? Because they believe. Whose fault is it? Whose fault is it? Is it God's fault that I'm suffering? I have coronavirus? No. It's what? It's my fault. So I don't need to ask God. Does that make sense? So Hindus are not asking this question. How about Buddhists? Okay, Buddhists are not asking this question. Why? Because they believe. Whose fault is it? My fault. Okay, it's my fault that I'm attached. I don't need God to detach me. I need to just detach. Does that make sense? How about New Age? No. They would say, what suffering do you speak of? Islam. Are they asking this question? They could, because they do believe in a God who is all-powerful, but they don't. Why? Because the idea, they cannot ask questions. You cannot ask questions in Islam because it's more about submission. It's you accept Allah's will for you. How dare you, a little tiny ant, ask a human being why a human being is operating in a certain way? Similar to that, right? How about atheists? Are they asking this question? I mean, they could, but again, they don't believe in God. So who are you talking to? What do you mean? Good, but they have to what? They have to presuppose that there is a what? There is a God. Exactly. But on their term, on their battlefield, are they asking this question? They can't. Who are you asking? Does that make sense? So what I'm trying to say is, this question itself is a Christian question. Okay? This is not an Islam question. This is not an atheist question. This is not a New Age question, Buddhist question. And of course, they can ask the question if they want. But you can only ask this question if you believe that the God of the Christian world is actually, that God actually exists. Does that make sense? This is very, very important. Okay? Because most people, okay, when I try to talk to people and ask them, try to discuss, have a discussion with them about suffering and pain, I go, okay, let's read the Bible together, and this is what the Bible says, and they're like, I don't believe that. Oh, what are you talking? I don't believe the Bible. then I would say, okay, then where do you get the question from then? Okay, where do you find a God who is both loving and all powerful then? Does that make sense? So the reason why we look at the Bible for this answer is not because I'm saying Bible is better and other books are not holy. I'm not saying that. This question itself is a Christian question. So if it's a Christian question, then we need to look at the Bible. It's simple as that. Does that make sense? Right? But again, most people are not willing to even look at the Bible. But if they're not willing to look at the Bible, then you can't even get the question itself. It's very important. Okay, so Stephen Fry too, again, on the one hand, he's saying God doesn't exist, and on the other hand, he's yelling at God. You can't do that. Okay, if you're going to yell at God, then you have to, for sake of argument, you have to act like there is a God. And we have to then deal with that God. What does God say about himself? Instead of you saying whatever you want to God and yelling at him. Okay, does that make sense? Now that's very, very important. Yeah, question? Judaism, they could also ask this question. Yeah. So from Judeo-Christian worldview, I would say. Yeah. Let me mention 3 random different thoughts. It's going to be a little bit similar, but I'm going to throw out 3 random different thoughts and then we'll end. Okay? Okay? You guys staying with me, okay? The first one is going to be a little hard, but I will make it easier for you. Okay, but I'm going to read the whole thing. Some of you might get lost, but it's okay because I will explain it. This is Ravi Zacharias. He's a very famous Christian philosopher, one of my favorites. And this is what he said. When you say there is too much evil in this world, you assume that there's good. When you assume there is a good, you assume that there is such a thing as a moral law on the basis of which to differentiate between good and evil. But if you assume a moral law, you must posit a moral lawgiver. But that's who you're trying to disprove and not prove. Because if there's no moral lawgiver, there's no moral law. If there's no moral law, there's no good. If there's no good, there is no evil. Then what is your question? Okay? He destroys the question in itself. Okay? So he's basically essentially saying this. He's saying, you're saying there is so much evil in this world. So if you're saying this is evil, then that means you must know there is good in the world. That's why you can say something is good and something is evil. Okay? And he's saying, okay, that's fine. If you know the difference between good and evil, then that means there must be some kind of law or some kind of rule in which you could differentiate between the good and evil. Does that make sense? Okay, another example could be, let's say we're playing basketball and someone calls foul. Okay? Why is that person calling foul? Because that person is saying some moves are okay and some moves are not okay. And there is a rule set in place where you can differentiate between good and bad play. Does that make sense? Okay, that's what he's saying. And he's saying, if there is a moral law, then there has to be a moral lawgiver, which is God. Now, there's different arguments for this, but right now I'm not going to dive into that. There are different people saying different things about this. But if you want an objective moral law, okay, objective meaning it's always true at all times. Even if we believe that it's wrong, it's always true. Like cutting a baby in half without any reason, always, always wrong. Okay? So he's saying, okay, so if you believe there is evil, then you have to believe there is God. That's essentially what he's saying. But a lot of people say, like for example, the first quotation, he said, there's so much evil in this world, therefore there must be no God. He's saying that doesn't make sense at all. Because he's saying, if there is no God, then you can't tell the difference between good and evil. Okay? That's essentially what he's saying. Any question about this quote? Okay, number 2. Richard Dawkins and Ravi Zacharias. Richard Dawkins is an atheist, naturalist. I read his quote about suffering is random, it's useless question. And then Ravi Zacharias, we just read, he's a Christian philosopher. Okay, so they actually didn't have a discussion, but Ravi Zacharias is just responding back to Richard Dawkins' writing. Okay, so I just made it into a dialogue form, but this actually didn't happen like in person. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so the question is, what is your view on God? Okay, Dawkins says, I believe God is a maniac, but he's a fictional character. Okay, so he understands that. He says, if there is God, he's a lunatic, he's a maniac, just like what Stephen Fry said. But he, at the same time, he understands because he says, but there's no God anyways. He's just fictional. All right. What do you think of humanity? There's goodness in humanity without God watching over us. He's saying, no, people are good. People are good. That's why a lot of these militant atheists are saying, religious people, they're wasting our time here. They're being lazy. Okay? They're leaning on this stupid God that doesn't even exist. They're not working hard. They're just being lazy people. Just praying. Okay? And he's saying, no. We need to do something about it. We're good people. We got this together. Okay? By the way, there's a movie, Interstellar. I don't know if you guys watched that movie. That's kind of what the movie is actually trying to get at. If you actually watch very deeply, it like the whole movie, it's like, oh, maybe there's supernatural. But in the end, it was just actually human beings who evolved even more, and they were able to save humankind. They don't need God. Okay, that's what, again, a lot of these people are saying. All right, so this is what, so he says God is bad and human beings are good. We need to continue to progress. Okay, now this is what Ravi Zacharias, he responds to this interview. This is what he says. Now, I don't know if I'm confused or he is. If God doesn't exist and all of these descriptions apply in the Bible, okay, like all the negative things, all the genocide and all of these things, if God doesn't exist, who did these things in the Bible? Humanity. Humans did it. Okay? Who wrote the Old Testament if God didn't inspire these words? Humanity. Okay? That's his answer. Then who ordered all these things to happen? Humanity. He's basically saying everything bad thing that happened in this world, if God doesn't exist, then again, all of these bad things that happen, why is it happening? It's because of humans. Okay? So he says this, why on earth are you so big on humanity and so small on God when humanity manufactured the God that you deny? Okay? In essence, he's saying, you're so big on humanity, but humanity is the one that created this God. So why are you so big on humanity? Okay? Point number 2. Point number 3, and then we'll finish with this. I don't know if you guys watched this show. It's called House. Couple of years ago. So House, he's a doctor. Okay, and he's talking to a sick nun. Okay, nun, someone who dedicated their whole life in the church, and Dr. House sees this nun continuing to stay faithful to God throughout her painful journey as she is dying, or I forgot exactly, okay? And House said to her, why do you still believe? Why do you still have faith? And this is what she said. I was angry at God first, but I realized something. You can't be angry at God and not believe in Him at the same time. No one can. Okay? So in essence, this really summarizes everything that we've been talking about right now. Okay? Which is, again, this question itself is a Christian question. If you want to ask this question, if you're angry at God, then, again, you can't say you're angry at God and not believe in Him. You have to reconcile these things. Either God doesn't exist and you have to deal with it, or God does exist and you have to try to find the answer to it from the Bible. Okay? So that's what we will be working on in our next section, is actually we'll be going into the Bible and see what the Bible actually has to tell us about why is there pain and suffering in this world. Okay. Any quick questions before we end? Okay, so if any of you guys have questions who are watching, you could type it on the comment boxes, and I will reply. Huh? Yeah. So whoever's watching, they can ask the question later. Okay, so let's get into our discussion questions.